What's it need to take the trailer for?
Okay, this is Damian Macy. I'm with the Friends of the Library Oral History Project, and this is Thursday, May the 28th of 2015, and I'm at the lovely home of Jackie Titus at 913 Oak Street. So with that, I would just ask Jackie, start with your family and your early background and bring us up to date. Choice is yours and how you'd like to cover that.
Well, I was born actually on the way to the hospital. So that was kind of interesting. I started this life, I guess, pretty interesting. My dad took my mom in to Dr. George's office. And he checked and he thought it was going to be a while, so he finished with his patients, and all of a sudden he decided Mom was not going to wait much longer, so they put me in. Dr. George was driving his mom's car at that time, so he put me in the car, and actually he had to stop at Derby Hill and deliver me. And then we went on to Union Hospital. So I was born to Raymond and Ina Faye Spittler Miller. And I've lived in Marshall basically my whole life. When I was in the 6th grade, we moved to Casey for 1 year. My dad worked for Jewel Tea and the Sunbeam bread truck over there, but he wasn't happy with that job, so he came back to Marshall and went to work for the city as a policeman. Eventually, he became the chief of police. And then when natural gas came in Marshall, he took over as the natural gas superintendent, and he retired from the city. My mom had worked in a restaurant. She had been a dishwasher, a cook, and then in later years she baked cakes and made noodles for everybody in town. She eventually actually catered weddings, made wedding cakes, and made all kinds of cakes. I was raised in the Marshall Baptist Church and was baptized there, saved and baptized there. As far as my childhood, we lived in the country when I was little, but I don't really remember a whole lot about it. I do know that I started kindergarten when we lived in the country, and my sister was 2 years older than me, so Mom wanted to take me to school my first day of school in kindergarten, but I thought, well, I want to ride the bus with my sister. And she said, so we went out to meet the bus, and she said I took 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and she had to take me to school. So that's one of my special memories from...
What school was that?
The Marshall kindergarten here in Marshall, where the Ohio, was it called the Ohio Building?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Okay.
the Ohio Building. And my first kindergarten teacher was Miss Barb Daly. And in kindergarten, I have always wanted a pony and cowboy boots. So in kindergarten, when I took my nap, I was right next to David Morgan. And my mom said a girl can't have cowboy boots. So when we took our naps, we had to take our shoes off. So when I would wake up first, I would put David's cowboy boots on and walk around. But my mom still never bought me cowboy boots. When I was an adult, I bought my own cowboy boots. So then when we moved to town, we went into a neighborhood with lots and lots of kids. So we roller skated on the front sidewalks and made leaf houses in the fall and just did all the things that kids don't do anymore. Played tag and hide and seek. I did have a pet, a little chihuahua called Mickey. And when my dad brought him home, he was so little he was in his suit jacket pocket, his top pocket there. Dad brought him home in that. Had a previous marriage, so when Gail and I got married, I had a son, Jim, who was 7 years old. And we got married, and a couple years later BJ was born, and then a year later Sarah was born. The kids had normal childhoods. Gail spent a lot of time with them. They did four-wheeling, and BJ raced motocross, and Sarah did gymnastics and softball, and we just followed them around every place. As far as my work career, when I got out of high school, I went to work for Mason-Dixon Tank Lines as a secretary and worked there 1 year, and then they filed bankruptcy. So Andy Emmert was my boss, and he talked to Frank Pierce, and Frank Pierce was needing a secretary. So in February of '68, I started for Marshall Mutual Insurance Company, and I worked 3.5 hours a day and made $1.60 per hour. At that time, Frank was the secretary treasurer and Jean was the assistant secretary treasurer, and it was run by a board of directors. And the 9 directors then were Harry Murphy, president; Fenton Letterman, vice president; Don Abel, Harold Adams, John Amaker, Richard Glick, Doral Greenwell, Dale Richardson, and Kelly Shawver. I worked there for 42 years as their secretary. When I started, it was just Jean and Frank and I worked just for the mutual. And then they had an independent agency there that did car insurance and that type too. So over the years, it grew, and in would have been 1975, I quit because I was pregnant with BJ and was going to be a at-home mom. And then that next year, Jean got killed in an auto accident. So Frank talked me into going back to work. So I went back to work, and I worked there until I retired in January of 2011. And over that time, it went from Marshall Mutual always was the same. It's a mutual, which is actually owned by the policy owners, but they had their independent agency. So when Jean got killed, Dwight Shore bought in. So it was Pierce Shore. Then after that, when Frank retired, Dick Parker came in. So it was Shore Parker Insurance. And then when Dick retired, Jeff Murphy went in, and it was Shore Murphy. And now Dwight has retired, but it stayed the same, Shore Murphy. And they've got new agents in there, and things are going on.
When you started there, where was the first office? I remember on North 6th Street,
on North
there
6th
on the
Street,
east side
right, yeah.
of the first block.
Right next to Pearl's Restaurant was on one
okay.
side, and across the Ford Garage was across the street there. So that's where we started, and then when Delaney Bank built a new
moved up
bank,
there.
we bought that building
Okay.
and moved into that as we grew.
Do you know where the business actually started originally, where they were?
No, I don't. I'm
have
pretty
never-
sure it was in 1889, but I
Wow.
really don't know exactly
I know you
where.
weren't there then.
No, I don't know exactly where, but like I said, it was just some people decided, and they just started by having a board of directors, and actually the policyholders own that company.
Right.
And once a year they have an annual meeting, and every policyholder has a vote. So if you want to go to the annual meeting, they announce it in the paper and all, and it's always, I think it's either the 3rd or 4th Tuesday in January, but it's always the same
time
every year. And then if you want to go vote, they have meetings and bring up different things, and then after they elect the board of directors and all. And then after that, they have a board of directors meeting, and they set salaries and set rates and everything in January. So, but I was the main bookkeeper. So when I first went there, I did everything. I typed the policies and did all of it. But then as we got bigger and bigger and bigger, and of course then you got to computers and all.
How many employees were there when you started?
When I started, it was just Jean and Frank.
Really? So there would, with you then, there would have been just three employees?
Just 3 of us, yes, when I first started. And it was that way for several years. And then, like I say, after Jean got killed and Dwight came in, then they started working the agency part of it more, and they hired a girl for the agency. Get him a pen up there, Gail. I think he's penning my dry.
So you were kind of a do-it-all.
Right,
and,
right. I did it all, everything.
Wow.
Did all the billing, answered the phone, did everything.
With the changes, I guess, in that period of time that you were there, what was the most major change that you saw outside of just simply the growth of the business?
Oh, gosh. I don't know that I can think of anything really particular. I mean, we just got so big that we had to have more people, so it was nice to have another girl in the office as far as that goes, and I could get away more often. Like, I didn't take a lunch break, I just stayed over lunch. If Dwight, or if Frank and Jean weren't there at lunchtime, then so most of the time I just took my lunch there. But
with the advent of that word you called computer, Did that just simply change the world for you?
Oh yeah.
Or make it
yeah.
worse?
At first it was hard, and to this day, it's great if they're working, but when they're down, you can't find out anything. Now, before I retired, even we'd gone completely paperless, and so everything was on the computer. So if somebody came in and wanted to know something, if the computers were down, we couldn't even tell them. We had to say, "Hey, we got to get back with you."
If the electricity's off, everything comes to a halt.
Yeah, even our phones. Our phone was electric, so even when the electricity went off, it was kind of fun when it was because it got to where there were 7 of us in the office and four girls. So when the electricity went off, we just went up front and sat and talked because nobody could do anything. You couldn't work, you couldn't see, you couldn't answer the phone or anything.
It's like a business that has an electric door.
Right.
You can't even get in the business
Right.
if the power goes.
Right.
Now, the building that is the Marshall Mutual building now, the old Delaney Bank building, that is purchased and owned by Marshall
Mutual, yeah.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that is purchased. And it was really nice because then we had one small vault in the building we were in before, but now we actually have 3 vaults in that building, and it was bigger. They could have a nice conference room in the back and made it nice for them. So.
Lobby and a waiting area.
Lobby
there
and
too
a
for
waiting room,
reception.
yeah. Yeah.
How many employees are there now? I'm not
Katie
sure.
my daughter-in-law works there now. So there's Jeff and Greg Keller. Jeff Murphy and Greg Keller actually are. Jeff is the president, or they call it now president of Marshall Mutual, Greg Keller is the assistant secretary treasurer. I guess they still call it the secretary treasurer because Dwight's the first, or manager, whatever. Or Jeff is first, and then Greg Keller. And there's another guy that I don't know his name, but he's in there and does the crop hail for him now. And then Brent Kyle is the adjuster, and John James is an inspector. And then Katie Titus does the underwriting. Colleen Gard does claims. And then there's Laura Tingley is the receptionist. And then there is 2 other girls that work part-time for the agency and part-time for Marshall Mutual. And Wendy Tharp works for the agency. And one of those girls is Christy Scott, and I don't know the other girl's name.
Like something.
It's certainly growing then a lot
Yes.
in all this business, but also in the size of the number of people.
Right,
And of course, they're needed to take care of that additional business, I suppose.
right.
Quite a change.
It says here, the person or event that was a major influence in my life. I don't really know other than my dad. My dad always stood beside me regardless, and I did things that my dad wasn't proud of and didn't like. But my dad always stood beside me, and I guess I have always looked up to my dad. I love my mom too, and it was a great loss when we lost her. She passed away in 2000. But when my dad passed away in 2004, it was really tragic. And of course, the thing that changed our life as much was 17 years ago when my first grandchild was born. And he was born with a severely deformed heart. And they were able to do everything they could to keep him alive for 7 weeks. And he got his first heart transplant when he was 7 weeks old.
A few weeks ago, Sarah and Kobe were at Rotary and gave a wonderful program at Rotary
Yes,
Club.
yeah, I knew they
So
did that.
glad to
She knew we were in Florida, so I didn't get to be there.
I
But
assumed
she
you were aware of
typed
the
it
thing
out.
over there.
Yes, she let me read it. So, and
And-
we made it about 15 years without any real problems, and then we needed another heart, so we were fortunate enough to get the second heart transplant last October 9th. So yesterday was May 27th, and we call that Happy Heart Day, and we celebrate that every year, and we take flowers to church, and Sarah's got a memorial garden in her backyard that she's planted from the flowers that
What
she
day is
takes.
it?
May 27th.
May 27th.
That's the day he got his first heart.
Okay.
And of course, Nanny always buys him a gift for that, so he's thrilled now. Now he has 2 Happy Heart Days, because we'll have one on October 9th when he got his second heart transplant. And we went to Riley's on Tuesday for a checkup, and everything's great. He's just doing fine.
That's
so,
wonderful.
Yeah, so he's fine.
And you
So
look at him, he looks like that normal, healthy boy.
yeah,
Needs a haircut,
And it
though.
is today.
Needs a haircut.
I'm sure you're very, very proud of him, and also very much went through a lot, I know, to
Yeah.
reach today.
Yeah. It says something about a historical event. I remember when BJ was born in 1975, and in 1976 we celebrated what? The bicentennial or centennial here in Marshall? 1776 to 1976.
Well,
So
that
what
would have
would
been
be-
the bicentennial, I believe.
So Kobe
but-
would, or I keep calling him
But-
Kobe, BJ. BJ would have been almost a year old when they celebrated that. He was born in November, and I think it was in September. And I remember my mom made us dresses. We had the long dresses, and he
Yeah.
had an outfit and all. And I remember
Became
that
quite
was
an
kind of
event.
neat. Yeah, it was
celebration.
kind of neat, a celebration like that. So yeah, that was kind of neat. So, modern conveniences that affect my life the most. If you ask Gail, it's the computer, because I'm on the computer day and night. I sell Longenberger, so I do my business on the computer.
Oh,
I love Facebook. That's how I keep up with old friends that you haven't seen in years, and you can keep up with pictures and everything like that. So
so you are a Longenberger dealer?
Yes,
Do you have
consultant.
parties and all to?
yeah, I'm starting to kind of
Both
get
of-
out of it, but I have a room here that is, I've got cash and carry stuff that people call me and they come and get a gift. When they need a gift, they come and get it. But I've sold Longenberger for about 10 years now, and I'm kind of starting to weed out of it. I usually do vendor events and take it every place, but it's heavy and it's a lot of trouble, and I'm getting older, so I'm kind of selling out of that. So, it's funny, my oldest son lives in Chicago, and he was home this weekend, and we have this game that asks you questions, and he said, one of the questions this weekend was, if a foreigner came to town, where would you take him? And we laughed and laughed at Jim because he couldn't think of any place in Marshall that he would take a foreigner. But the more we thought about it, we thought about the log cabin. We take them to the log cabin, the historical museum, the Archer House, and Harlan Hall. That's places that we would take him. And as soon as he graduated from college, he's always lived in Chicago or a big city, and he just doesn't understand. He loves
That's
coming back.
Jim, you
Jim
said?
Sweet, yeah,
Yeah,
my
yeah.
oldest son, Jim Sweet, yeah. He loves the two nieces and nephew, and he loves coming home spending time with them. But Marshall, to me, there's no better place to live. Everybody is friendly. The support you get, just like when Kobe had his first heart transplant, right away people were helping out. And this one, as soon as 2 years ago when we started having trouble, they didn't even wait till he got his heart. They were doing benefits, and everybody, is so friendly, and everybody knows everybody. A lot of people are moving in because of our school system's a good school system. So if they check that out, and all the factories that have gone in at Paris, people come here because our school system is a lot better. And so there's, a lot of new people that you don't know, but everybody's friendly and waves. You can,
Many people that I've talked to that visit also say how clean and neat things are, and everyone seems to take good care of their property.
Right.
Their home.
right. So I wouldn't want to live anyplace else other than Marshall. I think it's great. We're close enough if we want to go to Terre Haute shopping, if we want to go to Chicago shopping, or Tuscola's got a nice mall. You've got enough stuff around here. You've got community theater in Terre Haute if you want the theater, and St. Louis, you go to Fox Theater. We've gone down there. After Kobe was born and finally got home, and he was 3.5 months old when we brought him home, and so when we trusted his dad to watch him for a day, Sarah's favorite movie, his mom Sarah, my daughter, his favorite movie is The Sound of Music, and it was playing at the Fox Theater in St. Louis. So we took her for a day trip to go there, and even though she was worried about Kobe the whole time, she loved the movie. And we were fortunate enough, Richard Chamberlain was playing in it when we saw it, so it was great. So, we're close enough that we can go do things. And
You mentioned Florida. Do you winter some there? or-
Yes. A year ago, last August, for about 8 years, we've gone down there for a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. But a year ago, last August, we bought a place. So the last 2 winters, we've stayed about 3.5 months down there. And actually, had ridden our motorcycle down there last October and was going to stay for a month and come back. And we were just there a week when we got the call for Kobe had a new heart. Was getting a new heart that day, so we flew home and left our motorcycle down there. And then when we went back this year, we drove our car. So in April, BJ and Katie and the girls flew down and drove our car home so I could ride home the end of April with Gail on the motorcycle. But yeah, we're in Ancient Oaks. It's a retirement community in Okeechobee, Florida. It's where lots of Jack
well, I was gonna say there's a
Huffington,
lot of
Dale
Marshall residents
Huffington,
down there.
Dudley Crowe, Ed Arbuckle, my sister Kay and Ken Smith own a place there. Harry Dean and Vicki Huffington just bought a place there, and Terry Clodfelder, Bear Clodfelder, and Judy. So it's a nice
have a
place
Marshall
to be.
reunion.
Right, yeah, yeah. And everybody's friendly there too. We love spending the winter down there, but to move permanently, I'm not ready. The kids are still in activities here, so that's what the little one here, Carly's, plays softball all the
I'm not
time.
allowed to move to Florida.
Yeah, I can't move to Florida. She's our softball player. She played eight games last weekend.
Wow.
She's got another weekend coming up this weekend.
Well, it's nice to miss the snowflakes, especially.
Right.
And the ice.
Right.
If you were visiting somewhere else, say Florida or maybe some other country, what would you tell, or how would you describe Marshall? You kind of touched on several of the things, but how would you tell them that this is a great place to live?
Oh gosh, just basically what we said. It's a nice, small, clean community. Everybody's friendly. We live right on Route 1, so you've got Route 1 going through an Interstate 70, so you still have to worry a little bit about this day and age, things going on, but mainly it's a safe community to live in. And I just like it because everybody's friendly. You know, we have a super Walmart, so that's great. And we still have our IGA that has much better meat, so we still have that in town. And I feel bad for the businesses downtown because they struggle because we are fortunate to have the Walmart.
You worked downtown for your career of business. What do you feel, when you first went down there, you remember about Marshall as compared to today?
For one thing, it was much safer. When I raised my kids, you know, they rode their bikes all over town. When I went to work, you know, and they were able to ride bikes uptown, and it was just it was actually a much safer place than it is now. But and the businesses were all downtown. Like on my lunch hour, I could run and do whatever I needed to do. Well, now you have to get in your car and run someplace, or, you know, to do things because there's not near as many businesses.
I guess the fortunate thing is the buildings have been well maintained over the years.
Yeah.
And most of them are occupied.
We're fortunate enough to have people that care about history, and so they're, you know, Marshall Main Street and Historical Society and all. And it was so much fun when I worked at the end of the school year to see Edie Brenneman or Charlotte Moorcraft bringing the school kids up to tell them about the school buildings, and that was interesting. It was so much fun. We'd look and we'd watch to see if one of our grandkids, we'd all go to the front window to see if one of our
May
grandkids
is
was in
Historic
that.
Preservation Month, as determined by the National Historical Society in Washington. So there's usually a lot of things that take place, and the school tours coming downtown is one of those.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie, and you filled in several things that I was not aware of about your career. And now keep in mind, this does go in the library. It will be transcribed and put in a book. And it does also, now the new technology, they're putting it online, and it will be online. So if someone keys in Marshall's library, can go to oral history and can even hear you talking.
Okay.
So that modern technology will make this available to a lot of people. And your son in Chicago, if he wants to find out what Mom said one of these days, he can do that.
Okay.
I was just going to ask you one thing. You mentioned your son, BJ. Does that stand for a particular name?
It's Benjamin Jared.
Jared?
He was
Okay.
named after his great-grandpa, Ben Cork.
I'd always known him as BJ too,
Yeah,
and I
but
just
it's Benjamin Jared.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've enjoyed talking to you so much and appreciate your hospitality. And with that, I will say again a big thank you.
Okay, thank you.
See, now that's not so difficult.